to all of you who are joining us this evening to learn about the kindergarten admissions process for private schools. My name is Caitlin Hassan. I'm with Evolved Education, and I'm also joined by Jana Ulinoff, who is also with Evolved, and we will be going through all the different things in the kindergarten admissions process and what to expect and look out for over the next several months. So we will be talking about the admissions process for the 2021-2022 school year, meaning that your child would be entering kindergarten in fall of 2022. And just something to note before we get going, your child should be turning 5 before September 1st, 2022 in order to apply for kindergarten for that year. But if your child is younger than that and you'd still like to learn a little bit about the process, we are happy to have you as well. So just a little bit of background about the two of us and who we are. So my name is Caitlin, as I said, and I have a master's from Teachers College, Columbia University, and I taught in New York City independent schools for 10 years, primarily teaching kindergarten. So I know it's a wonderful and special time. And I'm also very familiar with the process, having worked in the school admissions office for several years as well. And now I'm at Evolved Education Company as a school placement advisor, and I help families identify schools to apply to and help them through the admission process. So I focus a bit more on the parent side of things, while Jenna will introduce herself and focus more on the child side of things.
Yes, hi. As Caitlin mentioned, my name is Jana Ulinoff, and I am an ESL teacher with a master's from Hunter College, and I've been teaching for about 4 years. And I primarily handle the testing for the for the school admissions and everything. And I am also a tutor with Evolved.
All right, so we're going to just give you a bit of an overview of what we're going to talk about this evening so you know what to expect. So we're going to start by talking about the admission cycle calendar and kind of what to expect over the next several months and how the process works as an overview. We will also talk about best fit schools and how to come up with a school wish list to meet your child and family's needs. We will also talk about the application itself and what to expect as you fill them out. And then another piece is also the parent interview portion. And so we'll talk a bit about what to expect in parent interviews, how to prepare for them, and just how to showcase your child in the best way possible. And Jana will also talk about the student interview portion, which this year will involve the thinking and engagement assessment, which will be done via Zoom. So we'll talk more about how to prepare your child for that. And I'm sure many people have questions about what that might look like. So we will be sure to give you some information there. We'll also talk about school visits and what they will look like for this coming school year, including school tours, open houses, information sessions. And last but not least, we'll talk about how Evolved Education Company can help you throughout this process and also leave some time for Q&A at the end. So we will get started by talking about the admissions cycle calendar. So we're in the summer now. Schools are obviously closed, but that doesn't mean that you don't have to start thinking about this process. You can definitely get started now or in August. We suggest coming up with your school wish list. So that means we'll talk a bit more about what some things you can think about with the wish list, but it's a good idea to start thinking about things you want for your child in a school and come up with a list of schools that you would like to apply to. You can also begin assessing your child and begin tutoring. So what we mean by that is just get a sense of where your child is developmentally, both academically, social, emotionally, and also begin thinking about how to prepare them for the thinking and engagement assessment. And Jana will give us some more information on what that might look like, but it's a good idea to think about how to prepare your child to be on Zoom with a teacher for 45 minutes. And that's no small task for a 4 and 5-year-old. So think about how you can prepare your child, and we'll give you some tips on that as well. And you can also begin your statements for your applications already. There's no need to wait until the fall if you want to get a head start. Then in September and October, things really kick off as the school year begins. You can complete all of your applications. Many schools participate in Ravenna, so you can fill out your application on Ravenna, and it's almost like a common application that will go out to many different schools at the same time. However, definitely make sure you check all the schools' websites that you're interested in, because some will have some supplemental material or may not use Ravenna, so they will have an alternative application form to fill out. Also, you can register your child for the T&E or Thinking and Engagement Assessment beginning in September. However, we suggest that you wait until later in the fall to have your child take it. You can also schedule all your interviews and tours. We think it's a good idea to book them early, just as schools fill up, even if you don't want to actually do your tours and interviews until later in the fall. And you can also begin to attend open houses as schools begin to host them. In November and December, that's a great time to make sure that you do all your school visits for interviews and tours. Many will take place on Zoom this year, but some schools may start hosting families for tours depending on the school. Your child will take the T&E assessment, and as we said, we suggest your child does this later in the fall so that they have a chance to get acclimated to school life again after a summer off. They've had a few months of school under their belt, and they've had some more time to prepare for this assessment that will be done on Zoom. You can also ask your child's teachers to write recommendations. And similarly to having your child wait to take the assessment, we suggest asking for your teacher recommendation later in the fall so that your child has a chance to get to know their new classroom environment, to settle in, and your child's teacher has a chance to get to know them as a learner. And you can also send follow-up emails after every school visit or interaction you have with the school, whether that's a tour, interview, open house. Send a thank you note always to just demonstrate interest. Then in January, it's a time to meet any deadlines for any lost items that you have not accomplished yet, and send letters of interest to the schools you're most interested in. And then February is when the cycle wraps up, and it's a really exciting time. The ISAGNIA school notification date for next year is February 3rd, 2022. So that's when you will begin to hear from schools. The ISAGNIA decision date is February 10th, 2022, so a week later. So within that week, you may be hearing from different schools getting off wait lists. So it's a busy week and an exciting week. And hopefully by February 10th, you will feel good about where your child is headed for kindergarten. So we're going to talk a little bit about best fit schools and what we mean by that. So we believe that there is no best school. And you may hear different things from different parents about best schools or rankings. And it's really easy to get involved in the water cooler talk throughout this process, especially as all your child's peers are going through it. But we really encourage parents to kind of step back from that as much as possible and think about what, instead of the best school, think about the best fit for your child and your family. So to begin doing that, you can start by creating a wish list of things you'd like in a school. And some things you can think about when creating your wish list are what your child needs to learn, like what kind of physical environment or what kind of learning environment they might need. You can think about your family's educational philosophy. So things that are important to you, either from your own background, things you experienced in your own educational journey that you did not like, that you'd like your child to avoid. So that's something to think about as a family, about what's important to you. You can also definitely think about location. I think this one's really important. In New York City, as families shuffle kids to multiple schools, it's really important to think about what's going to be realistic logistically for your family. And, different families feel differently about committing to travel a long time to get to schools, but this will be a commitment for the foreseeable future for your child. So you want to make sure that it will work for your family. You can also think about whether you'd like a co-ed or a single sex school environment for your child. And there are definitely pros and cons to both. And we're happy to talk through that with you. You can think about programming. So things like athletics and the arts, start to think about what you'd like your child to be able to participate in and what schools offer those things for you. You can also think about the school community as a whole and perhaps how parents may fit into that. If you'd like to be very involved in the community, think about, or you can start to investigate if there's a active parents association at each school, as well as the approach to teaching. So perhaps you might like, or your child might benefit from a more traditional approach, or they might benefit from a more progressive approach. Think about what might work best for your own individual child. And that may be different for different children within your own family. And then last, another thing to consider is the facilities and what schools have to offer. We know space is at a premium in New York, so different schools offer different types of facilities. So think about what you might really want and what will be best for your child, and you can kind of begin to cut schools from there. So no school will have every single thing on your list, but from your wish list, we can think about what are the most important things and then begin to craft a list of schools that will best fit your child's needs. And we are happy to help you with this process. We know the schools very well, and so we're happy to help you work through creating your wish list and then identifying schools that will work best for you. All right, the next part is about the application itself, and there are a few different components. So one component is just general biographical information. So that part is usually pretty straightforward about your family, your child's school, any past schools they may have attended, um, parent background, if you have any siblings in the family. Sometimes they'll ask for a family photo, so that's something to be prepared for as well, just so the schools can start to put a face to the name on the application. Another portion is the parent writing piece, which we'll talk more about in a minute about what to expect with that. The school transcript from your child's current preschool, and then your teacher recommendation. Um, so for kindergarten admissions, the teacher recommendation is part of the ISAGNIA K through 1 recommendation form. So all children will be all children will use the same form if they are applying to ISAGNIA schools. And teachers are very used to filling these out. The form includes a checklist that they will fill out about developmental information such as pre-literacy, pre-math, language skills, behavioral and adaptive skills. And like I mentioned earlier, it's a great idea to ask your child's teacher to fill this out later in the fall so they fully get to know your child as a learner. However, check with your preschool because they may have different processes for this, and we want to make sure that you're going by what your preschool has to say as well. So the parent writing portion is a great way for the school to get to know your child and your family. So parents write statements or answer short questions. There's obviously no SE writing on the part of a kindergartner, so this is just a way for the school to get to know your family. So some sample questions you may encounter, like these are some questions from ISAGNIA in the past. They may be the same or they may be fairly similar in the upcoming school year. So describe your students' strengths. It's normal to face challenges in life and in school. Can you speak to a challenge in your child's life and what was learned as a result? Um, Tell us about your students' recent school experience and how your students' strengths and challenges have been supported. And our schools strive to be inclusive communities for all. We invite you to share about your family and how you may foster and or contribute to a diverse and equitable school environment. So we can certainly help you with this process if you feel that you need some support. We can help provide tips and edit your writing pieces, polish them so that they really highlight your child's strengths, and also discuss challenges both authentically and appropriately. Schools really want to know that you are going to be a partner with them. And so if you are able to discuss your child's challenges realistically, I think schools definitely appreciate that. Okay, and the next part is the parent interview. So schools will either call families to schedule these or will provide a booking link. This year, most likely, all schools will be conducting interviews via Zoom. So this is a way for schools to learn about your child, but they also want to get to know your family as a whole because you're going to be part of the school community. So some questions you may prepare for would be just tell us about your child, and so they can get to know your child a bit. Tell us about your interest in our school. So they'd like to learn about what specifically about this specific school you are interested in. Tell us about a challenge your child has had and how they overcame it. How did you? They may want to know some background about you as parents. How did you grow up? Where were you educated? What do you do for work? Do you participate in any community service? And a lot of schools like to know about how you're involved in your child's current school. So those are just some examples. And then another thing to be prepared for would be questions to demonstrate interest in the school. So you may have some questions you'd like to ask at every interview, which is certainly fine, but we also highly recommend taking a look at the school's website and coming up with some specific questions for each school just to demonstrate your interest and show that you really have researched the school. And so we, school placement advisors at EEC, can certainly help you prepare for parent interviews. We could do mock interviews. We can talk about how to talk about perhaps a challenge your child might have, and just make sure that we are going to highlight your child and family in the best light. So Jana will talk a little bit about what to prepare or how to prepare your child for their portion.
Yes, thank you, Caitlin. Yes, so as mentioned before, I typically prep the children for their exams and interviews. So looking forward at the Thinking and Engagement Assessment, also known as the T&E. It's an assessment that was designed by two child psychologists last year to be used, of course, for the kindergarten admissions process by some private schools. This is administered via Zoom by an early childhood professional that is usually called the assessor or the person that administers the T&E. This test is a true 45 minutes long, 45 to 50 minutes. And the registration begins September 9th and goes until December 1st. And you can register 7 days a week. Little is known really about the structure of the test, except for the description that you most likely have seen on the private school websites you're looking to apply to. And unlike the G&T, the Gifted and Talented test, we don't have past papers really for reference, but we can certainly look to other tests out there that assess to the specified skills, which I'll get into as well. The following skills that are assessed in the T&E are receptive and expressive language, problem solving, developmentally fit, early academic skills. We're talking about pre-math skills, pre-literacy, pre-reading skills, as well as the teachability or engagement of your child, which I will delve into now. So in terms of the receptive language and the expressive language, really the receptive language is the ability to understand spoken language. So for example, a question that could be on the T&E could be something like, which picture below is of an object with wheels? So as you can see, there are colors on the bottom of each of the pictures. The children are not required to know the names of the pictures. So that's why the colors are there. So if the child, for instance, answered with yellow, the assessor knows, okay, it indicates to the assessor, okay, that child understands the vocab, like they understand the word that is being asked in this particular question. They understand that particular vocabulary word. For expressive language, the ability to use words and language to express one's thoughts, ideas, and feelings. So, okay, we have a pretty abstract question here. What is a cloud? So the deal with these expressive language questions is that we want to encourage extended response that highlight the key aspects of the word. So we want to encourage as much language as possible from these kinds of questions. So if the child says, okay, it's white, fluffy, it's in the sky and rain comes from it, those are all excellent, excellent responses. The key is that we just want to yield as much language as we can so that the assessor understands that the child understands the vocabulary needed to understand the word that is being displayed in the question being asked. So much language as possible. Similarly, with the problem solving questions. Okay, so in the example here, it's quite a hypothetical question, but the good news is that with these kinds of questions, it's really like an open-ended response. So there's really no specific answer that the assessor is typically looking for. They just want language. They want to know that the child is trying to access the language to get to the answer. So what we don't want to encourage, though, is saying nothing or actually saying the word nothing or simply saying, I don't know. We want them to just try their best with this kind of question. The assessor totally understands that this is a very, this is a challenging area, but they just want to see the child really just try their best, and they can do that with just coming up with a few simple words for this kind of question, for this kind of scenario. So if we go over to the early math and pre-reading skills. So for the math, the assessor might ask questions about ordinal numbers, such as first, second, last. They might ask the child to determine differentiation in size, which object is smaller or bigger than the one next to it. They might be asked to count. So those are just some examples of those. And then pertaining to the pre-reading skills, they might ask the children progressively challenging questions, just depending on where they are in terms of their phonemic awareness. So that means they might ask the child to do some rhyming. They might ask the child for initial letter sounds. So which one of these words starts with f? Now, if the child knows their initial letter sounds, awesome. If they don't, that's okay too. The whole idea here is just to see where the child is. And I just want to let you guys know also, they will not be asked to read. They will be asked to listen to different sounds in the word, but they will not be asked to read. So just want to put that out there. Okay, so what can you do to developmentally prepare your child at home? So you can embed certain activities into your daily routine. This can be as simple as at the dinner table. Maybe it's asking your child, how many pieces of blank do you have on your plate? Or do you have more pieces than me? So just sort of introducing those early math concepts to them in like a fun, playful, and approachable way. It could be even something as simple as, what do you see on the table that starts with, or can we think of something else that starts with? So it's sort of you're asking these questions in a playful way, but but while you're doing it, you're also activating that little critical thinking piece, which is assessed all throughout the T&E. Similarly with reading, you can ask certain questions while you're reading with your child. And if you're already doing this, great. If not, that's okay too. You start when you're comfortable, but you start with easier questions, sort of less challenging questions, and then you build them with confidence, and then you can start asking some more challenging questions. So perhaps you can start with, okay, what do you see in the picture? Can you point to the biggest animal on the page? What was the problem in the story? How did the character fix the problem? So again, you're activating that critical thinking piece in them, but just in like a fun and engaging way for them. Okay, in terms of what can we do to help you? What can Evolved Education Company do to help you guys? Okay, so we can provide example questions that are likely to be on the actual assessment. So similar ones that we have that we've displayed here in the slides. We can certainly provide typical scenarios and fun activities with bright colors and characters that invite your children into the assessment. So I usually will play Clifford, or I will do Daniel Tiger, and I will ask critical thinking questions just to calmly invite the children into the testing space. The other thing that we can do is we can help your child practice sitting for those 45 minutes, because as we've said, it is a true 45 minutes. So just having them come to that educational space and mimic that T&E assessment space with an unfamiliar teacher is key. So we can also get them accustomed to wearing headphones, as that's something that might not be totally familiar with a lot of kids. So just helping them ease into the process as much as possible is great. So with that, I will pass it over to Caitlin, and she will finish up with the kindergarten school admissions process. Thank you.
So we actually had one great question regarding T&E while we're here, which is the T&E assessment done for all schools? So the answer is no. Jenna, do you want to talk about that?
Oh no, I was just going to say a quick answer. Really, no. It's done for a handful of schools, but it's not done for all schools.
Yeah, so many schools are participating in the T&E. Some schools are not. So if a school is, and that's something to find out via the websites of the schools. So if a school is not participating, they will likely have their own assessment via Zoom that your child will do. So it may be somewhat similar in that they'll be engaging like pre-math, pre-literacy activities, and just trying to get to know your child via Zoom, which we know is not the easiest way or best way. No schools want to be doing it this way, but it's kind of the best solution they've come up with for this situation. So the next part, we will talk about our school visits. So school visits primarily will also be done via Zoom this year. The good news is that schools have had a year under their belt of doing this via Zoom. So I think you will definitely be benefiting from a better experience than perhaps families did in the last year. So school tours are a really important piece. So you get to know the school and the facilities. So most likely will be held on Zoom. Usually they are conducted with either an admissions officer or a current parent. There is potential for schools to host visitors for tours this year. I've heard from one or two that may be having parents into the building, but this is obviously an evolving situation and will be determined by individual schools. So something to really take note of as you explore school websites. The school tour, though, is a great way to get to know the school facilities, and you'll be meeting either one-on-one or in a small group with someone who knows the school very well and can answer a lot of questions for you. The next thing is an information session. So these will definitely be held on Zoom as schools can't host many families at one time. Schools may offer one session or multiple sessions, so be sure to check the dates for each school. And it's very critical that you attend these. Usually schools actually require it, but not only attend on Zoom, but really have your screen on, be dressed as if you're fully going to the school. We know that that can be a challenge sometimes on Zoom, but we really highly encourage it. It helps to show your family in the best light and demonstrate your interest. I know from my own experience doing some information sessions in the past and seeing a lot of black screens just definitely doesn't show as much interest as the families who are showing up looking at the screen. And I think that definitely says a lot about your family and your interest in the school. And information sessions will be conducted by either the head of school, the head of lower school, an admissions officer, perhaps a current teacher. And it's just a good way to get to know information about the school, the kindergarten program, the lower school program as a whole. And they will give you plenty of information about things that you should know about their school. And perhaps there will be an opportunity to also ask questions. And then there are also open houses, also will be held via Zoom. Again, schools may offer one open house or have multiple sessions. That's something to really investigate. And they may be held for multiple grade levels at once or just for kindergarten applications or applicants. So this may be, if you're applying to a K through 12 school, they may be holding one open house for the whole school. And schools will have it organized so you know how you will be attending. But if you have any questions, we definitely recommend reaching out to the school ahead of time, just so you're fully prepared. Will you be on screen? Will this be one-on-one? Will you have to be prepared for any kind of conversation, or will you have the opportunity to ask questions? It's just a good idea to fully go in knowing what to expect. But an open house generally will have multiple grade teachers from multiple grades. If it's a school that's K through 8 or K through 12, you may have the opportunity to meet teachers from multiple grades or specialist teachers as well. So you can just get to know the school a bit more as a whole. And again, just really important to attend fully on Zoom with your screen, with your video on, so the school can see your interest. So we have covered a lot of information about this process. We hope that as a whole, you'll find this a really exciting and engaging process, and it will work out that your child will get into a school that works really well for them and your family. But we know it can be quite a daunting process as well, and there's so many schools in New York City to explore. So at Evolved Education Company, we are definitely here to help you if you need any assistance throughout the process. So just some ways that we can help would be developing a school wish list with you and identifying best fit schools for your child, as we know all the many schools in New York City and what they have to offer and how that may best work for your family. We can help you polish any parent writing materials and application materials and make sure everything is turned in on time, as different schools have different deadlines for things, and we want to make sure that you get everything in as you should. We can also, as Jana mentioned, help prepare your child for the T&E assessment by working with Jana on Zoom and really practicing for that situation that's not very typical for children of this age. We can also help you save time and eliminate inefficiencies throughout the process by keeping track of dates, making sure that you stay on track with your materials, and that you don't miss out on anything very important. Another thing we offer is the New York City Schools platform, which is a standalone platform. You can access it via our website that parents use either in conjunction with one-on-one consulting or as a standalone support. So the platform has many lessons, resources, videos that you can use throughout the process. It's really informative. Just one thing to note, though, is that it's not customized. So if you're looking for something that will be specific to your child or your family, this is not going to get you that. The one-on-one consulting will get you more specific, customized advice. So we know we've covered a lot. If you're interested in working with us further, the next steps would be speaking with Stephanie Sklar, who is our head of client services. So you can email her at admin@evolveded.com and schedule a 15-minute meeting complimentary, so that you can talk about what you're looking for, and how we can best help you throughout the process. Or you could visit the Evolved website, and there's a way to book time on there as well. So we hope that this was really informative for all of you. And thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you coming. We do have some time here at the end for some Q&A. If you need to head out, just thank you so much for coming. And if you do have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat and we will answer them as best we can.